Syrah and Shiraz are actually the same red grape variety. It's most commonly known as Syrah all over the world, although you'll find in South Africa and Australia it named Shiraz. Syrah is the 5th or 6th most planted red grape variety in the world, depending on the sources. It's a very noble grape variety, although it doesn't have the cachet as Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Noir. It's really unfortunate. Even in California, where there's some beautiful Syrahs, a lot of producers say they can't even move Syrah. And I noticed that you get some excellent wines that if they were Cabernet Sauvignon, they'd be 3-4 times as much. Shiraz is one of those grape varieties that once you get addicted to the flavors, you just get really hooked on it. Its home is the Rhone in France. There was a debate for a long time if it was from Shiraz in Persia, what is now modern day Iran, which at the time was producing some of the most renowned wines in the world. Obviously not these days. There are other legends that said it originated in Syracuse in Sicily, which I've been there. It's a beautiful town, by the way. But we now know it's from the Rhone. The most coveted examples are from the northern Rhone, places like Hermitage, Côte-Rôtie, Saint-Joseph, Cornas, Crozes-Hermitage. Those are the most coveted appellations in the northern Rhone. The grape was brought to Australia in 1832 by James Busby. Australia kind of adopted it. Don't quote me on this exactly. I think I saw somewhere that 50% of the world's Syrah is in France and 20% of it is in Australia. In Australia, it's the leading planted grape variety. However, that's not the origins of the term Shiraz. The late great Paul Lukács wrote a book called Inventing Wine, which I recommend to everybody if you're a wine geek. Well researched, and he noted that it was actually called Shiraz in South Africa before Australia, which makes sense. Grapevines came to Australia in the early 17th century. Shiraz obviously came to Australia in the early 19th century. It's not only in a book. I remember one time I was at a wine writer symposium at Napa Valley, and that quiz question came up, and my group was the only group that got it right because I said South Africa instead of Australia. Syrah can be made in a variety of different styles. In the northern Rhone, which we have one here today, it can be more peppery, meatier, more savory. Yes, you can have black fruit flavors, but I find sometimes it can go to red raspberry. It can even go to more sour cherry type flavors, which I absolutely crave. When you go down to Australia, they're going to be less tannins. They're still going to have some meatiness, but really a lot of blackberry, black plum, peppery fruit flavors. It is full-bodied. Generally, Australians like their wines with a little bit less tannin, a little more round, creamy mouthfeel. Whereas I find the northern Rhone Syrahs to have a little bit more of a chewy tannin type texture. You have wines like Hermitage, Côte-Rôtie, some of the rarest Syrahs that are really tough, need a lot of bottle age. I, in fact, have a Syrah video coming up where I have 10 different Syrahs from all around the world. I'm going to blind taste them. But here today I have some extra ones. I have one from the northern Rhone and I have one from Australia. I'm pumped to do this tasting. Let's get it. Tasting out of my Riedel 002 red wine glass. I love this glass. It's a multi-purpose red wine glass, but it really has the shape of a more Syrah glass. Riedel makes a Syrah glass as well. That's why I'm going to use it for this. It's not inexpensive, but it's not expensive. It's worth checking out. I'll leave a link in the description box. I'm trying to make my videos more friendly to you, so let's start from this side and move our way over. As always, I Coravin these and then had somebody mix them up for me. I do know what the wines are beforehand. There is a big difference in style between French Syrah and Australian Shiraz, so I think it's going to be pretty easy to spot the difference, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's start with wine one. Syrah Shiraz can also have some violet notes, which I get out of this. This is leathery. This is black raspberry. This is peppery, which I like. This smells really, really, really good. Oh, Syrah, when you get great Syrah, when you get the leather peppery notes, it's just amazing that wines can taste like that. On the palate, oh, it's a good wine. I thought it was more Syrah-y, but it's creamy. Low amount of tannins. The fruit is really intense. This is the type of wine that I think everybody's gonna love. This is a hell of a wine. That's a good wine. Let's move on to wine two here. Two has a lot of menthol type of notes. I usually associate menthol and red wines to come from Australia, so that might be the case here. Tons of menthol, black pepper, black cherry, black raspberry. The fruit profiles are quite similar actually, but I do think this is Shiraz. Has a little bit of leatheriness, but this is a little different. On the palate, lots of blueberry fruit type flavors. It's more full body. Tannins are a tad softer, although these tannins are soft too. These wines, in terms of complexity, length, are extremely similar. I think it's really just going to be towards your style. Fruity, a little friendlier, but still complex. This one's just a tad savory. That's why I think I like it more. You ready for the reveal? These are two excellent wines. I mean, super highly scored. I wanted to do this video about some of the differences you're going to find. Although what I think is the Australian Shiraz, which is wine number 2 here, it's not as fruity and big and loud as a lot of Australian Shirazes that you expect. I knew what these wines were beforehand, and they're not super expensive, but they're not cheap. They're really good wines. I'm going to go 93 plus. I mean, it's that close. It's just preference. Wine 2, I think it's definitely Australian. The menthol note, that's what really, you know, sets it apart for me. You know, but we'll see. Oh, I can feel the screw cap coming. This is the Clonakilla 2021 Oreada Shiraz from Canberra district. Canberra is the capital of Australia. It's its own district. This comes in at 49 bucks. This is an exceptional producer. The Clonakilla Shiraz Viognier is one of the greatest Australian wines I've ever tasted. Actually showed up in my Australian Shiraz video. Did super well. I think this is delicious. The menthol note, it stood out. 49 bucks. I think this is a really good wine. You're kind of getting what you pay for. And this is the type of wine ready to drink now, but man, I'd like to see it with 5-6 years of bottle age. I think everybody is just going to really love that wine. I want this with more stewed meats. I want this with more grilled meat. I know that Clonakilla, the founder, was really inspired by the wines of Côte Rôtie, so they wanted to make a more Rhone-style Shiraz. And they've really, when you taste Clonakilla Shiraz Viognier, it's very distinctive, as is this wine's a little more plush than Shiraz Viognier, but it's more dialed back than a lot of Australian Shirazes. Australian Shiraz is one of the wines that got me hooked on the wine. I was visiting a friend in New Zealand. He was Australian, actually, going to school in New Zealand, used to work in a wine shop. He was cooking me dinner. I was traveling around the world. He's like, Maddie, do you want a wine? I said, yeah, sure. He opened a Margaret River Shiraz. I still don't know what the producer was to this day. It was a big glass, and I remember smelling the glass after I was done forever. We finished the wine really quickly, and I wanted more. It was so good. Okay, Northern Rhone. This is a 93 plus. A classic. This is the Guigal. This is the Saint-Joseph 2019, so it has a little age on it. 39 bucks for a wine that I think is 93 plus points. I think it's exceptional. Talk about Northern Rhone, Syrah, Hermitage, Côte Rôtie are the real rare ones. They're right at the top. You're also going to have Cornas, and then the two more value-driven appellations are Crozes, Hermitage, which are grown more in the flat. Saint-Joseph is a steep slope. I think it's the biggest region by geography in the Northern Rhone. The wines are made to be a little softer, a little more approachable when young. I think this is an excellent wine. Really gives you the taste of Northern Rhone. This is exactly the type of Syrah I want to drink. And this style of Syrah is being made in California, which I really enjoy. So tell me, do you prefer the Syrah style or the Shiraz style? Bigger fruit, more savory? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.